This happened in the 90s when I was younger, and I still remember this vividly to this day. My brothers and I still get goosebumps thinking about it. My parents took my older brother, myself and our younger brother, who is deaf, with them to check out a house they were thinking about buying. It was in an older, but quiet neighborhood in a city we just moved to for my dad's work. My parents were considering the house due to our needs, the amenities around the house, such as the park across the street and its proximity to the nearby freeway. Our parents were walking around the house doing their inspection while talking to the realtor. My brothers and I were exploring, checking out the house, the rooms, and the backyard, like any normal kids would do when introduced to a new space. My little brother and I were in the backyard checking out the bugs we could find and messing around with each other, excited about our potentially new home. While our older brother went back inside to look for our parents. My little brother and I were always very close since we were 1 year apart and growing up, he and I made up our own sign language prior to us learning ASL officially. Our older brother suddenly burst back outside and told me to come inside the house. He wanted us to check out the huge walk-in closet in the master bedroom. It was so big that it could have been another standard room in and of itself. So we all went back into the house to check it out. The house had a dated single-story floor plan and were sectioned off into 3 parts. The 2 bedrooms and bathroom were on one side, the kitchen is directly across from the entrance to the sleeping area only separated by one of the entrance doors, and the living, dining, and family room filled up the rest of the home. A couple oddities stood out to me about the house. It had 2 entry doors to the front, and it had a massive mirror that filled up 2/3 of the wall that it shared with the master bedroom. It was an antique-style mirror, that was sectioned off like tile, and had an elaborate golden inlay that encompassed the whole body of the mirror. I don't know why, but the mirror always gave me an eerie feeling. It reminded me of the doors in a morgue where the coroner stores the deceased. I would imagine a corpse pushing one of the mirror panes out and coming to get me. Needless to say, I had a very active and morbid imagination. My brothers and I gathered inside the master bedroom, and my older brother, who is 4 years older than me, had a devious smile on his face. He then proceeded to tell us that someone was murdered in the house, and I translated for our little brother. My little brother and I looked at each other with shocked and bewildered eyes. I told him, "You're lying." He retorted back aggressively, "You wanna bet?" As he marched into the walk-in closet. He then said, "Then what is this?" Pointing at a dark brown stain on the floor. Hearing all the commotion in the bedroom, my parents along with the realtor startled us, and made us all jump. My mom then asked what was going on and why were we arguing. My older brother hurriedly said, that it was nothing and that we were just messing around. I then blurted out that, no, he's trying to tell us ghost stories and that someone died in the house. Our dad then scolded him, and told him that he wasn't supposed to tell us anything. Our mother then approached my little brother and I. She tried to console us and tell us that it's nothing and that it's a natural occurrence. I then told her, that there is a blood stain on the floor. She quickly replied, that it was not a blood stain and that it was just an unknown substance and that it would get cleaned up prior to us moving in. I was shocked. She looked at our dad and the realtor for help, and the realtor chimed in. No one was murdered in the house, and that the old lady passed away in her sleep, due to natural causes. I'm not sure that made any of us feel any better. I glared at our older brother and I noticed a hint of fear on his face also. Some time passed and we got settled into our new home. During that period, the memory of that news slowly faded from our minds and we proceeded to live our lives normally. Until one night. It was a normal summer evening. We finished our dinner. Our dad had just left for work since he was in management on the graveyard shift. Mom was in their room getting ready for bed watching TV to wind down. Our older brother was in our room reading a book. When my little brother and I decided to play a game of hide and seek. There was a sliding door that separated the bedrooms from the rest of the house that we would bolt shut at night for the sake of security. I told my brother that whoever the seeker is would count in our room, and the hider would go out to the rest of the house to conceal themselves. We would turn off the lights, but leave the TV on so it wouldn't be completely dark. The last thing was that the hider would close the sliding door so no one can cheat. We played hide and seek with an element of tag, meaning that whomever the seeker was, had to tag the hider before the hider could go back to our room. With the rules in place, my brother and I started our game. We played rock paper scissors 3 times and I ended up winning the first 2 games. I was the hider and he was the seeker. Before we continue with the story, I have to explain how my parents decided to furnish the house. Since there were 2 entryways, my parents decided to put another fridge to block off the second entryway furthest from the sleeping quarters. A wall separated the kitchen and family room. Just past that was empty space and our dining table. The living room had 2 couches and had the TV as the focal point. In the family room my parents decided to make a sitting room that overlooked the 2 front doors. From there they put 2 brass-studded black leather chairs that had a small gap between them. I chose to hide in between those 2 leather chairs, because I could see the sliding door and the second fridge from my vantage point. My brother would make grunting sounds to indicate he was counting. After his 10th and final grunt I hear him run to the sliding door which would make a wood-on-wood sound due to the friction and the game was on. I watched him survey the area, the kitchen and the family room. I laughed knowing I had nothing to worry about, and continued to observe him. Out of nowhere I watched him sprint into the kitchen and jump to the far side of the second fridge. He made a motion as if to catch me, when he made a distressed grunt and ran back the way he came, crying. Confused, I leapt out of my hiding spot and chased after him. When I came into our room I saw him hiding underneath his blanket crying. Our older brother looked at me accusingly and annoyed. He asked me what did I do to him. I said nothing, and explained to him what I saw. Our mom had fallen asleep and stayed in her room. After consoling and calming him down, I asked him what happened. He then described to us that when he was looking for me he saw someone's head peek out from behind the second fridge. The face moved fast, but he said it looked like me with a smile on their face before he ran up to it to catch me. When he rounded the corner and saw that there was nobody there, he immediately got frightened and ran back to our room. My older brother and I looked at each other in terror. Jokingly to hide his fear, he said that maybe it was the old lady coming to play with us. I socked him in the arm with which he gave me one right back. As 3 boys raised by a no-nonsense dad, we immediately took out our bats and went out to the living room to see if maybe we had an intruder. Ready for war, we slowly crept out into the kitchen in a tight formation covering our flanks. We turned on all the lights and dispersed to make sure all the doors were locked. We searched every nook and cranny for potential hiding spots. We found nothing. Completely freaked out, we turned off the TV and slowly turned off the lights, while still facing out ready to whack any would-be attacker with our aluminum bats. After we got to the sliding door I positioned myself at the opening ready to swing, while my older brother closed the sliding door. He bolted it shut. He then told us it was probably nothing and that it was just our imagination. What he couldn't hide was the slight hint of fear on his face. We then went into our parents' room to make sure our mom was okay. When we saw her fast asleep we all looked at each other and the walk-in closet. It was like an eerie void goading us to come in. We drummed up the rest of our courage and walked in. We checked in there and found nothing. We then started going back to our room. On our way out we turned off our mom's TV and turned her nightstand light on. Once we got back to our room, we turned on our TV and turned on our Super Nintendo to play Street Fighter 2. So we can forget about what happened. That night all 3 of us slept with our bats and kept the TV on. Recalling this memory still sends goosebumps all over my body. Thank you for listening, and if you liked this story, please like, share, and subscribe. Bolo. Out.